Hey, what's up, folks? Welcome back to On Texas Football, and welcome back to Football Theory. I'm lifetime Longhorn Rod Babers, pleased to be joined by my good friend and esteemed colleague, my man Jeff Howe. And of course, what else is there to talk about? It's Texas OU week. We're talking about Texas versus Oklahoma and how the Longhorns can beat the Sooners. And I think last time I looked, the Sooners were actually favoring this thing. This thing is going back and forth. We'll get into it and break it down. Let's thank our sponsor first, or one of our sponsors first, our friends over at Duck Camp. Duck Camp makes gear for folks who live for being out there, whether that's in a duck blind at sunrise or on the 40 acres for a Saturday kickoff. Born right here in the great city of Austin, Duck Camp builds best-in-class hunting and fishing apparel that works just as well for a full day in the field as it does for a long day of tailgating. From sun protection shirts that keep you cool during those early season scorchers to their iconic game series hats that feel like instant classics, Duck Camp gear is ready for football season, hunting season, and every season in between. Get out there and stay out there and hook 'em horn. Shop Duck Camp at duckcamp.com. All right, Jeff, let's break it down. Let's start on what I think is going to be the toughest task for the Texas team here is the Texas offense going up against what is easily a top 5 defense. Someone call it the best defense in the country. I think the Ohio State defense has better personnel, but I think Oklahoma's defense may wreak more havoc and in terms of up front wreak a lot of havoc, even though they don't force a lot of turnovers, and we'll talk about that too. But nonetheless, it's a challenge up there with the Ohio State challenges.
Yeah. To me, I was kind of thinking along the same lines you were, Rod. I still don't know about the Oklahoma secondary just because they haven't been challenged because their front has been so good. That's not their fault. Their front is just really good at getting after the quarterback. But I think from a defensive front standpoint, I think they're the best in the country. I mean, I haven't seen extensive amounts of everybody, but from what I have seen, I haven't seen one better than Oklahoma's.
And not a good time to be playing them, considering right now your offensive line is in a bit of a crisis, considering after that Florida game. But let's talk about it because great minds think alike. When I looked at how Texas is going to try to attack Oklahoma, I thought to myself, yes, I don't see them putting together long, sustained drives. I don't see 12, 13, 14 play drives with that offensive line. That means you need a running game and you need pass protection. I think you're going to need chunk yards against this group. And that's why I'm glad you pointed out the secondary to me, I think is easily the most vulnerable part of this defense. Now, I'm not saying they're weak, but they're the most vulnerable part of this defense. And I went and looked at it, and it actually stands up. Devon Jordan, no PBUs or interceptions. He's allowing over 12 yards per target. He's already allowed 2 deep balls on the year. 83 completion rate when you're throwing in his direction. Cortland Guillory, this guy's a freshman, so he's going to be a damn good player actually down the line. Actually, it's pretty good right now. But if a freshman's out there, you got to go after him. 25% missed tackle rate. Nearly 10 yards per target allowed, and in the last 2 weeks, 85% completion rate allowed. 3 of his 4 penalties that he has in the last 2 weeks, and he's allowing, like I said, down near 10 yards per target in the last 2 weeks. So it seems like teams are starting to pick on him a little bit more. And I think Peyton Bowen, Gentry Williams, another guy, and Robert Spears Jennings, those guys are more veteran players. But I still think those 2 players, and along with the secondary, that I've seen them already give up some chunk yards, some big plays to Michigan and to Auburn. And that's kind of the games I'm looking at. I'm not looking at the Kent States and I'm looking at the 2 Power 4 teams they played. And although the defense was really impressive, they got 10 sacks against Auburn. They were able to make some plays and get behind those DBs a few times. Yeah. I think that's where Texas has to focus a lot of their efforts.
I think running the tight ends up the seam. I think you look at this Brent Venables defense, you think, okay, it's different than the John Haycock 3 high, but you think, okay, how do you attack this inverted Tampa 2, the flyover, whatever you want to call this defense? I think one area you can attack it is you can attack the seams. If you've got the tight ends that can get a good release and you've got a quarterback that can get the ball off on time, that's going to be easier said than done. But I think, Rod, this is a really good week to figure out, hey, Jack Andrews, Jordan Washington, Nick Townsend, even Emory Winston, get your tight ends involved in the passing game. That's some of the stuff you got to do. Look, Sark can't have the same game plan he had for Florida and expect to win this game. It's just not going to work. At the same time, trying to get wide, you think, okay, get the ball out quick, your perimeter screen game. I think maybe if you can get it out fast enough, maybe you can do that and try to get Oklahoma's DBs isolated on an island one-on-one. But, misdirection runs, Rod, anything between the hashes, if you try to swing it wide or it's slow developing you're going to be behind the chains all day because this defense is just way too active. They're way too disruptive. You're going to have to attack it hard, fast, be assertive. That's something we really haven't seen this Texas offense be. So what does Sark have in this playbook where you can attack them quickly, be sure about what you're doing, and try to set up some of those explosive plays? The only way you're going to create chunk yardage plays in this game, Rod, is if you're able to maybe suck those DBs up and then try to run by them, try to get some vertical stuff down the field. But you gotta trying to simulate balance, if that makes any sense, is going to be the hardest thing for Sark in this game, because we know the run game struggles. Do you have the perimeter screen game? Do you have enough stuff in the quick game to where you can alleviate some of the pressure off Arch, alleviate some of the pressure off the offensive line? We just haven't seen Texas do that. So I want to see if Sark does that, how's he going to go about it?
Yeah, you gotta. I agree. You got to throw an early down. Number one. First of all, you don't want to be in a predictable passing situation against this defense. 100%. That's third and medium, third and long. They're gonna eat you alive. They're the best third down defense in the country. So I think your early down pass rate needs to be pretty high. So those are your most successful passing downs against Oklahoma. You want to be running on third down. Kind of want to be throwing actually on second down and first down. And I went and looked at the Auburn game. And I looked at that Michigan game. So they gave up, Oklahoma defense gave up 12 10-plus yard pass plays in those games. 11 of them came on early downs. And they gave up 5 20-plus yard pass plays. 4 of the 5 came on first down. Yeah. That's where you get them. And Auburn did it with max protection. And sometimes they did it throwing out a heavy sets. You know, we talk about presenting power personnel packages and pivoting to play action pass principles. They did that early on and got some chunk yardage plays on Oklahoma. I think 2 40-yard bombs they got. Both of those came on first down. So if I'm Sark, I'm thinking early down. That's where you got to surprise them now. And you can go max protection. They went max protection a few times. They got those 2 40-yard bombs. They went max protection on both of them. And I believe they were both out of heavier personnel, to your point about 12 personnel. So I think if you're going to go downfield, that's got to be part of it. You also need to move the pocket. They haven't moved the pocket intentionally very much this year. You need to move the pocket. He's going to work outside the pocket anyway, because another one of my notes is y'all better have perfected and practiced the hell out of the scramble drill this week. You need to, because that's where a lot of your hidden big plays are in this game. Because Arch can keep it alive for an extra second or two, but if your receivers can't master the scramble drill, you're not going to take advantage of it. Did a really good job of it actually versus Florida a couple of times late with the scramble drill. The scramble drill could be your secret weapon in this game with Arch, because Arch will keep the play alive. And so that's something else they got to work on in addition to moving the pocket. And by the way, I think it was what's his name? Underwood, the Michigan quarterback, did a lot of moving the pocket with him. Love what they were doing. Moving bootlegs, waggles, moving the pocket a lot, trying to keep those D linemen a little bit off balance. And also, I thought it's interesting, trick plays. I think Auburn did a good job with, they had a double pass that didn't connect, should have connected on that one. Double moves. They got behind the DBs with a couple of double moves. And you're saying, well, Robbie, how are they going to have time for those routes to develop? Listen, Texas double moves actually are pretty successful. Right now, Texas on double moves, I want to say they got 4 20-plus yard plays off of double moves already this season. And I think in this game, there will be a couple of opportunities to get those DBs who are really aggressive and the linebackers who are really aggressive to get them basically to make them pay for being overly aggressive. And I think that's what you do with quick key, fast flow defenses. That's what this defense is. They're going to be trying to take your head off. You can make that work to your advantage.
I think you're going to have to understand, if you're Sark, if you're Arch, if you're anybody on that offense that has a say in the game plan, you're going to have to understand, look, we're going to have to take some risks because the reward of getting a chunk yardage play far outweighs the risk of, hey, what if we have a negative play? If you look at the Florida, and I think, Rod, the Florida game is a pretty good example of what we're talking about. There was a point, and I think it might have been throughout the whole first half, but up until Arch, I think, hit a pass to, I want to say it was Emmett Mosley for like a 15, 16-yard gain in the third quarter. Up until that point, they were averaging 1.2 yards per play on first down. In the Florida game, 10 carries for 7 yards on first down. Now, you look at their passing numbers on first down against Florida, 7 of 14, 127 yards. 2 sacks on first down, but the 7 completions for 129 yards. To your point, you have to throw on early downs. And it's going to be a deal where you've got to scheme it open, because if I'm Brent Venables, I go into this game feeling like I can stop the run with a light box. I may have a 5-man box, a 6-man box. There's no reason for you to have a 7-man box in this game. I would make Texas prove they can run the football. But if you're Sark, yeah, I'm with you. Rod. You got to scheme it up. And the reality of the offense right now, and you say what you want about Arch. Anybody can say what they want about Arch. He showed me something in that Florida game. It's hidden in there. Yep. You just kind of got to dig through it a little bit. This offense reminds me a lot of the 2017 offense. And if you think back to that offense and how it mirrors this one, you didn't have like really a game changer at running back. So the one guy that you thought was Chris Warren, and they ended up moving him to tight end for reasons I'll never know. Your receivers were inexperienced. Like Devin Duvernay, Lil Jordan, Humphrey, Colin Johnson, they were all sophomores. So you really didn't have that veteran presence at wide receiver. And you're kind of a mess on the offensive line. I mean, go back and look at how many different starting offensive linemen they had to use that year. So what was the identity of the offense? Man, put the ball in Sam's hands and hope for the best.
One-man show.
What is the identity of this offense? Put the ball in Arch's hands and hope for the best. Now, that's not conducive, like you said, to sustained success, but when you have the opportunities to hit chunk yardage plays, they have to count. And part of that too, Rod, is wide receivers got to make contested catches down the field. Ryan Wingo had a chance at a couple of them. Arch missed Emmett Mosley on a throw. I still don't know how the heck Parker Livingston caught that ball on the delay where he took the shot to the knee. I don't know how. Yeah, I don't know how he's not out for the rest of the year. So it's a medical miracle. It's just you really, really dodged a bullet. But guys are going to have to step up and make plays around Arch, because your opportunities to move the ball down the field, I think, are just going to be few and far between. So it's all about maximizing the opportunities you do get.
I'm glad you brought up, before we move to the other side of the ball, I'm glad you brought up that 2017 season, because, I mean, I remember how big scrambling was for Sam, because Sam kind of figured out that he couldn't trust his O-line, and he started, like, you know what, abandoning the pocket as soon as it started to collapse. And there is some of that with Arch. I think Arch sticks in a pocket longer than probably a young Sam. He stays in that pocket as long as he possibly can. But I went and looked at the numbers in the 2 Power 4 games that the Oklahoma defense has played, obviously Auburn and Michigan. If you look at scrambles and scramble drill situations, they're allowing 10 yards per play in those 2 games.
Because as you said, Rod, it's the ultimate weapon in football, because you can have the right coverage, you can have the right front, you have the right personnel, it can be executed, and you can still be wrong because of that guy's ability to extend the play.
Yeah, so it's one of the few things that has actually worked on them, but hell, nobody can really game plan for it or game plan it. It's just the quarterback and the receivers working really well together. So just throwing that out there. Also, one more thing to throw out there, since we're on this side of the ball. I was looking at, and I've been on this, I feel like I've been on this soapbox for a while now, but I was looking at the Michigan game, and I noticed because I'm looking at their explosive plays, trying to see how can Texas get some explosive plays against this really good defense. They had a 44-yarder and a 25-yarder. It was two of their 3 longest completions came on targets to bunch formation. Closely clustered groups of receivers. Guys have heard me talk about this over and over again. This season, I don't know if there is a more successful cheat code on offense than targets to bunch formation. Allows them to use a lot of switch concepts and switch routes. Over almost 13 yards per attempt this season, over 40% first down touchdown rate, 25% explosive play rates. And in that game, it worked for Michigan, which is not really a very advanced passing attack, but it was able to get downfield and get some guys free against this Oklahoma defense. So throwing it out there, I think you can get behind them, but like Jeff says, you got to have time to do that. And
it's not like moving the ball against Oklahoma is impossible, but look, we talked about it during the bye week going into Florida. Hey, has Sark been holding anything back? Whatever you got in the toolbox, this is the game to use it, because I don't know what the heck you're going to save it for afterwards. So whatever you got in that treasure trove of cheat codes in this offense, unload every single one of them. And because if you lose this game, Rod, then at that point, everything that you thought, you can realistically say, yeah, our goals are still in front of us. A second conference loss, a third loss overall, and you just hit the halfway point of the season, your goals are out the window at that point. So you are playing for your season on Saturday. There's no point in saving anything.
I agree. The desperation. I can't wait to see how desperate they play.
Yeah.
Right. Desperation. That's what Florida played desperate. And that sense of urgency, it was palpable, all right, throughout that Florida on their sideline and throughout that team. I want Texas to kind of, to mirror that against Oklahoma. All right, let's jump to the other side of the ball, Jeff. I'm going to let you start things off. I know you got a question you want to throw out there.
Yeah, I think PK is going to have to take some risks. And the risk for me is, and again, I didn't like the way they started the Florida game, just playing so much off coverage, letting a struggling quarterback get into a rhythm. You started out with a light box. Florida ran the ball down your throat. I think you took too long to adjust. But I think the easiest path that Texas has to slow down this Oklahoma offense, you got to try to create negative plays on first and second down, because everybody's been asking, where's the pass rush? Where's the pass rush? Where's the pass rush? You got to earn the right to rush the passer. And you earn the right to rush the passer by setting your opponent up in predictable passing downs on third down by being really good on first and second down. I went back and looked at the first quarter of the Florida game, Rod. You realize Florida averaged almost 7 yards a carry. It's like 6.7 yards a carry. Crazy. Florida average. The difference is, and this is where I think, look, your defense is going to have to be elite. And I think they can be as the kind of unit that we thought they were coming into the year, because I'll go out. I'll die on this hill. I don't think Oklahoma's skill talent is as good as Florida's. I think Florida's got better running backs. I think Florida's got better receivers. The quarterback situation, I'd take Mateer over DJ Lagway, but I think Florida's offensive line is better. I think Florida has better pieces on offense than Oklahoma does. If you're Texas, you got to take more risks. I don't think you can plan on coming out in a too high shell. You got to throw something different. You got to break tendency a little bit if you're PK. And part of that, Rod, we've heard Sark say from day one since he got here, we want to be tight in man coverage. We want to be sticky in man coverage. We want to be aggressive in man coverage. Well, at this point, if you can't trust your corners against Oklahoma's wide receivers, who they've got some talent, but it's not like this is the best receiver group you've seen all year. If you can't trust your guys in man-to-man coverage in this game, then quite frankly, I don't want to hear anything about being sticky in man coverage. This is the game to do it. You've got to take some chances. You got to disrupt timing. You've got to try as hard as you can to force the issue, create negative plays, and hopes you get a turnover to flip field position, to flip momentum. It can't be status quo on defense, in my opinion.
Well, especially, and honestly, you might be right either way. I was going to say, especially if Michael Hawkins starts instead of Mateer. But the truth is, Mateer has a hand injury to his throwing hand. So even though he's got that dog in him, I ain't denying that. But it still is going to obviously be a variable that will affect his throwing accuracy and, obviously throwing the off-platform throws and angles that he's throwing from. So maybe you're right. Maybe this is the game either way, that you bring those corners down and you play aggressively on those early downs and say, no, we're not giving you anything. You're going to have to make accurate NFL throws between the numbers and the sideline if you're going to want to be us. We're playing aggressive inside leverage, press man, because we don't think either one of your quarterbacks can make accurate throws right now. I'm with you. I'm all for that, actually, to Texas to challenge. Now, having Malik Muhammad back will help my confidence in that, in mentality. And I wonder if you'll put Grayson Littleton out there at the corner spot potentially.
Yeah,
depending on what the situation is. Yeah,
for me, Rod, it's just, again, kind of like we talk about the offense, the risk of getting beat on a 50-50 ball down the field or giving up, a chunk yardage play down the field. The risk is well worth the reward of, all right, what if Mateer makes a bad throw? What if it's a sack and they're behind the chains? What if it's a strip sack and a fumble? What if he does throw an interception? So we're going to have to see PK. I don't think he'll ever be just an all-out blitz guy, and it's not going to be like some of the other defensive coordinators we've seen around here that, blitz from all over the place and had an extremely high blitz rate. But this is a game where I think he's got to break tendency. Look, I still have faith in this defense. Even though last week the first quarter was as bad as we've seen the Texas defense play in a long time, my faith in the long-term stability of this defense, Rod, is not shaken. But again, at this point, you've talked about the differences you want to have. You want to be tighter in man coverage. You've recruited personnel that indicates you can play man coverage. Man, you just have to at some point turn these guys loose. And I hate to say sink or swim, but hey, if it ends up being that Cade Phillips and Malik Muhammad are your best press man corners, okay, then let them get the majority of the snaps in this game. Or if it's Muhammad and Grayson Littleton, then leave Grayson Littleton out on the edge. But you've got to decide who are your best man corners, and you've got to take some risks, because I don't think you can afford to just play this game straight up and hope for the best.
Yeah, and by the way, to add to it, you brought in the coaches to help them, to teach them how to play man coverage, to bring in a guy like Coach Akina and Orfe and those guys. One little nugget before we end the conversation here, the defense, if they can do anything in this game, help them win the turnover margin, which no matter what football game you're talking about, gives you a huge chance, advantage to win the game. Right now, Oklahoma 116th and 114th in turnover margin per game. Pretty good. Texas is around 38. You win that, you got a chance to win the game. You win the turnover margin and the rushing battle. Oklahoma is just not a great rushing team at all, as we've kind of talked about and you've documented. If that is the case for Texas, you got to offensively, you want to try it, even if you're Arch Man, to try to win that rushing battle.
Yes,
because it matters in this game. It's a line of scrimmage game. All right,
don't let this be the game where Oklahoma figures out how their run game can function outside of the quarterback run, because you want my Texas OU money stat, Rod, and I recycle this every year because every year it's freaking true. In the last 28 meetings between Texas and Oklahoma, that includes that Big 12 championship game in 2018, in the last 28 meetings, 25 times the winner of the game was the team that won the rushing yardage battle.
Damn, that's good.
This is the ultimate line of scrimmage game on your schedule. If you do not win the line of scrimmage in this game, chances are you are going to lose the football game.
And that's why, even no matter who's the quarterback for Oklahoma, they got a chance to win, because right now, at least coming off last week, they seem like they may have better lines of scrimmage than Texas. But we'll see. All right. Thanks, Jeff, everything. All right, let's thank our last sponsor, our friends over at Advanced Pain Care, with two messages from two legendary lifetime Longhorns.
Pros know the pain stops here.
Physical therapy helps me as an athlete then and now. And do I still need therapy? Yes. Advanced Pain Care helps with that.
Injuries will stack up. They'll add up. You can't let those injuries get you down, and Advanced Pain Care has been very helpful for me.
We can help with whatever's got you down, from nerve damage to our spinal cord stimulator. Pain is inevitable. Suffering is optional. Same-day appointments available.
Advanced Pain Care. The pain stops here.
All right. Thank you to our friends at Advanced Pain Care. Thank you to our friends at Duck Camp as well. And thank you, Jeff, for all the expertise, all the knowledge and expertise. We really appreciate it. Thanks to Matthew behind the scenes. He's the real MVP. And for Jeff and for Matthew, I'm Lifetime Longhorn Rod Babers. Until next time, hook 'em horns.